Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Journey to Greatness, day 201 of 365. Happy Friday. Oh, man. Oops. Okay. All right, let's get into this meditation routine. Good morning, Mr. Hopkins. How's it going? What the heck? All right, let's get to it. All right. Welcome back. Jason, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Brandon, good morning. Liz, good morning. So we're going to continue on with our reading routine here. I'm currently reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I'll see you guys on the other side. Geez, man, this guy's going deep. I like it. Alrighty, welcome back. So we're going to get into our journaling routine next. I think today might be the last day. For this book, anyways. Okay. So today marks day 180, and 6 times 3 is 6 months. So we've been journaling for 6 months. 180 days of journaling. Wow. Congratulations to everybody out there. 6 month journey. Journaling is abound. I would say when I journal in the morning, it's pretty much I write about what I'm grateful for. So in the morning, that's waking up and being in exceptional health. And then if there's anything from yesterday's day that I'm grateful for, I go ahead and mention that. And then moving forward, if there's anything I wish to project or manifest for myself, then I write that down. So good way to clear your mind and get your ideas down on paper. See, what happens is when you do that, then you make your ideas a material fact. And when you make them a material fact, then it's easier for you to manifest them into reality. So I'll see you guys on the other side. Alrighty, so tomorrow will be our official last day of this Red Journal book, and should be nice. So, welcome back, everybody. Again, happy Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. Should be a great one. Jumping back to our book, Eckhart is starting to we're getting into the mind of Eckhart Tolle, and he's getting into the mind of people. So it's kind of cool to experience and to see. So yesterday we were talking about, taking time to visualize and see the flower and notice a flower being beauty, a flower being evolution, a flower being a temporary experience, but just simply the act of stopping and noticing, taking time to smell the roses. You guys know that you guys know that what's it called? You guys know that that saying, taking time to smell the roses. It's like when it's pretty much like you're not allowing life to live you. You're living life, and you're living life consciously. Because right now, what we're getting ready to do in this book is we're evolving and transcending into the space of the unconscious and unlocking that. And then with that awareness, we can bring out the better in us. We're going to recognize and understand where the ego derives from. I say Eckhart's getting deep. He's getting really deep, because now we're going to start shining light on what all of this even means and what it looks like to show up in our lives. Good morning, Brother Marcus. Good morning. An essential part of the awakening is the recognition of the unawakened you, the ego as it thinks, speaks, and acts, as well as the recognition of the collectively conditioned mental processes that perpetuate the unawakened state. So, in other words, what he's saying is the moment that we recognize that we have an awakened and unawakened state, we start to come into consciousness. The first is that unless you know the basic mechanics behind the workings of the ego, you won't recognize it, and it will trick you into identifying with it again and again. This means it takes you over, an imposter pretending to be you. The second reason is that the act of recognition itself is in the ways in which awakening happens. When you recognize the unconscious in you, that which makes the recognition possible is the arising consciousness, is awakening. You cannot fight against the ego and win, just as you cannot fight against darkness. The light of consciousness is all necessary. You are that light. So, this is not an attempt to slaughter or slay the ego that lives within us, but as my good friend Daoud would say, figuring it. Well, I'm kind of putting this into my own terms, but more or less, it's figuring out that the ego lives within the space that you live in, and not to battle it, but just to recognize that it's there and to pretty much interact with it accordingly. I feel like the more emotional balance you have, in terms of coming from a place of love, support, non-judgment, etc., something that a lot of these books have talked about, the more in check you can keep your ego. So the moment that you realize you have an ego, that you have an unconscious, is the moment you start to become awakened. So welcome to the awakened side, everyone. The light of consciousness is all that is necessary. You are that light. So giving you the power back. We are the magnificent beings, the magnificent creators of our own reality, no matter what anybody else says. The more you come into your consciousness, the brighter your light becomes, the more of a beacon you become for other people. Our inherited dysfunction. The part of this truth is the realization that the normal state of mind of most human beings contains a strong element of what we might call dysfunction or even madness. Certain teachings at the heart of Hinduism, they call this dysfunction that we all inherently live with as the Maya. Buddhism calls it the dukkha, and Christians call it original sin. All three of these are translated into different cultures, different religions. But in the end, they mean to live unskillfully, blindly, and thus to suffer and cause suffering. Again, the term stripped of its original cultural Again, the term stripped of its cultural baggage and misinterpretation points to the dysfunction inherent in the human condition. So we all live with this sin. We all live with this blind, wildly unskillful suffering and causing suffering side. There's this side of us that lives within us. Okay, so Eckhart Tolle continues by saying that, impressively, humans are very advanced in their thinking. We're very advanced in our development, in our conscious awareness, but we're also very, very destructive, and we have been very, very destructive, and it's due to the lack of recognizing or feeding into the negative side, fear, lack thereof, confidence, pressure, stress. Because we focus on these negative things, we have done a lot of bad things or nasty things in the past. Slavery, World War I, World War II, genocide, Africa, Europe, Asia, North America. I would say, cultural culture. There's been a very large cultural genocide of black people and slavery over time, and this is what Eckhart Tolle considers the collective dysfunction. So there's two types of dysfunctions. There's two types of consciousness. There's the collective consciousness, which is pretty much what shapes our consciousness, our ideas, everything about us. And then there's a personal consciousness. The personal consciousness, obviously, in my opinion, trumps the collective consciousness because you're not being dictated anymore. Society is not telling you need to feel this way or you ought to feel this way, and you're listening. You're saying, I see you for what you are, shine a light on you, high darkness, and then you're digging deeper into yourself, getting closer to who you are, ultimately developing the life experience that you wish to live. Another aspect of the collective dysfunction of the human mind is the unprecedented violence that humans are inflicting on other life forms and planet itself. The destruction of oxygen-producing forests and the other plant and animal life, ill treatment in animals in factory farms, poisoning rivers, oceans, air, etc. Driven by greed, ignorant of the connectedness to the whole, humans persist in behavior that, if continued unchecked, can only result in their own destruction. The collective manifestations of the insanity that lies at the heart of the human condition constitute the greater part of the human history. To commit murder, acts of extreme violence, cruelty against his perceived enemies, his own unconsciousness projected outward, criminally insane, with a few brief, lucid intervals. Fear, greed, and desire for power are the psychological motivating forces not only behind warfare and violence between nations, tribes, religions, and ideologies, but also the cause of incessant conflict in personal relationships. They bring about a distortion in your perception of other people and yourself. Through them, you misinterpret every situation, leading a misguided action designed to rid you of fear, satisfy your need for more, a bottomless hole that can never be filled. So, which book was it? I think it was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill said that fear is a crippling emotion, to be attached to, or to allow dictate the movement of your life. It is important to realize, however, that fear, greed, and desire for power are not the dysfunction that we are speaking of, but are themselves created by the dysfunction, which is deep-seated collective delusion that lies within the mind of each human being. A number of spiritual teachings tell us that if you tell us to let go of the fear and desire, but those spiritual practices are usually unsuccessful. They haven't gone to the root of the dysfunction. Fear, greed, and desire for power are not the ultimate causal factors. Trying to become a good or better human being sounds like a commendable and high-minded thing to do, yet it is an endeavor you cannot ultimately succeed in unless there is a shift in consciousness. This is because it is still part of the same dysfunction, a more subtle and rarefied form of self-enhancement, of desire for more and strengthening of one's conceptual identity, one's self-image. You do not become good by trying to be good, but by finding the goodness that is already within you and allowing that goodness to emerge. But it can only emerge if something fundamental change in your state of consciousness. Whoa. That was a mouthful. So, in other words, the way that I'm understanding this is the dysfunction is two parts, like we said before. The dysfunction is collective, personal. When we understand the collective dysfunction by understanding our own dysfunction, we can scale. We can scale this inner conflict or this inner dysfunction that we have to the collective consciousness. The more that we get to know the dysfunction within us, the closer we come to understanding why we're fearful, why we have this desire for power, and why let me see here. What was the other one? And why we are greedy, right? Then we can start. Then we have the mental shift, or the mental shift of consciousness, and then we start going into developing and changing those fearful, greedy, and demand for power ideas or urges that we have within us, or at least we check them. We just check them. I mean, we may not be able to escape being sinful beings, right? Nobody is perfect, kind of thing. However, we can find balance. I mean, look at nuns, for example. I don't know if nuns don't ever sin, but because sin can be as simple as a thought, right? But they dedicate their lives to being sinless people, and so to whatever capacity, whatever degree that means, they live their life a certain exact way. And what I mean to say that by that is we can change and check our desire for power and greed and all these other things, but you have to make the mental decision to do so. So it's no different, than anything else that we've done. Just waking up in the morning and saying, I'm going to try to wake up, pause. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, and you get on and you jump on and you're going through the exercises or routines and you're growing. That takes a change in your mindset. And ultimately, you're going to have a change in consciousness, because everything that you do, every way you perform changes. And so with the goal to dig deeper, to expose our highest selves and to live in our highest selves, and ultimately creating the life that we all deserve to live. So hopefully that was a fantastic explanation of all of that stuff. Like I said, it's getting pretty complex, and I like it because the deeper we start getting into discussion, I think the deeper our understanding of self becomes. And the more we become aware of who we are and how we get triggered and what makes us upset and what and what makes us not feel good and what makes us angry or upset, right? Or makes us have some type of emotional imbalance. The more we get to know that about ourselves, the better we can be for our significant others, the better we can be for our friends, the better we can be for our other family, the better we can be for our children, and most importantly, the better we can be for ourselves, living a healthy and balanced life all the way through. I will see you guys tomorrow at 5 a.m. Thank you for joining me on the journey to greatness, that episode or day 201 of 365. Congratulations to all my journalers out there. We just hit 180 days on our journaling. So tomorrow will be our last day for this journal book. Hundreds of pages of journaling over the last 6 months, which is absolutely fantastic. And I love you guys. Let me see here. Good morning, Robert. How's it going? Thank you. I appreciate you too, brother. For everybody who jumped on the messenger board today, thank you for letting me know that you're here. Everybody who's watching at home, thank you for sending love and positive energy. And again, have the best day of your life. I'll see you guys tomorrow.